if this question stood like that, it would probably be 4 marks. 4 out of 15, okay? But potentially, like a common thing will be, part A, they give you this function, right? And then they say locate the stationary points. Or alternatively, show that there are stationary points at here and here and here, okay? The reason why we do that for you is so that even if you totally mess this up, right, you can use it to do part 2, right, or part B. So this might be 2, and this might be 3, something like that, okay? So you're sort of varying from 4 or 5 marks. It depends on the kind of carried on error, right? So there's different things, right? So talking about, I mean, this is all in my head right now because I'm marking the 12. There's carried forward error, there's simplified carried forward error, there's... Have you guys heard of these before?
No.
Okay, so let me explain. Very simple. Carried forward error, right, means you've got the long question, you make some kind of basic error at the beginning, e.g. you read the question wrong, or you write a plus as a minus, or something like that, right? And then you carry on for many lines of working, which essentially would have been right if, like there's nothing wrong with the intervening working. You've just taken an error and you've carried it forward through the rest of your working, okay? If that happens, like say a question is out of 4, and then your final answer is totally wrong, right? Because you've done a lot of valid work, we don't just give you 0 for that. We might give you, depending on the kind of error it is, we might give you, say, 3, or if it's a really, really minuscule error, we might give you 3.5. It kind of varies. It's up to interpretation, okay? Simplified carried forward error means when you make some kind of error, and that dramatically simplifies the question. Okay, so for instance, if the question was really this, like say, oh, I don't know, e to the x on x, okay, differentiate that, okay? And suppose you were in a hurry and you looked at x and you thought it was a 4, okay? Now you can see, hey, people have done it before, okay, don't laugh. You can see that dramatically simplifies the question, right? Because it's, well, it's just that, isn't it? Oh, yeah. That's just it. There's nothing. That very much simplifies the question, right? So you can avoid quotient rule, blah, 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 right? So even though what you've done is valid, there's an error and you've carried it forward, it's simplified the question, right? So if it was quotient rule, it would have been like out of 2, right? This would probably get a max of like, I don't know, half or 1 if you were being sort of nice. Because it's a lot of work to quotient rule, right? And you've sort of missed all of that. This stands for, all the E's stand for error. This stands for ignore subsequent error, okay? So what this might mean is, again, a long question, right? And you get to the right answer, and then say in simplifying, or in interpreting it, maybe, or in just writing it down, you've just written it down wrong, okay? So, you know, classic one is where, let me think, suppose you get to something like, say, 44.3172, blah, 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 right? And the question was, okay, just approximate it, give me an approximate answer. And your answer ends up being something like 44.31, okay? And you give it to 2 decimal places, okay? Now, depending on how big the question is, how important the approximation is, whether there are other approximation questions in the exam, and you don't want to get hit for every single one and lose like 5 marks for making the same error repeatedly. This might either be dot, or we would just look at that and forget about it right up here, ignore subsequent error and give you full marks. Okay? Because maybe all of the work really was prior to this, and you've satisfied us, you've shown that you can differentiate or put into a formula or graph or whatever it is. Okay? Yeah.
What does IC stand for?
Ignore subsequent error. So you've gotten it right, and then you've made an error, but I'm going to ignore it and just say, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that and give you full marks anyway. Or at least, you know, whatever you deserve, having not made this error. Okay? Yeah.
So is that for the same? Because I had this before. It's for a trig question, I left it in radians and degrees. Mm-hmm. And I remember getting an ISE.
Yeah, so again, because, for example, that's a good example. So if you're doing a radian measure question, you had to work out like a length or an area or something like that, and you did wrong units, but your answer ended up okay, you shouldn't present a radian measure question in degrees, because it's radian measure, right? But, you know, most of the work is probably in making sure you pick the right area, use the right formulas, etc. So if someone's being merciful to you, or decides the rest of the paper is hard enough and you're going to drop marks everywhere else, they might just be nice to you. Okay? Alright, anyway, yeah, last question.
Is there still, this is completely unrelated, but is there still multiple choice in the HSC?
Yes. I think last year was the first year which had, I think it was 10
Yeah.
multiple choice questions in the HSC, and as far as I know, that's the direction it's going to head in more, because national curriculum, blah, 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 and that's
Yeah,
what
but they hard multiple choice. Are they actually?
It varies. It varies.
Schools has a choice for national curriculum, or do they have to?
They have the choice right now. There's like a whole timeline. You could look it up. It's all public as to how they're going to like phase it in. But eventually, I think it's probably going to happen. It's been a long time coming. Like 3 or 4 successive administrations have said we're bringing in a national curriculum. And well, when you think about it this way, there's standardization, and at the moment, for instance, when you don't have standardization across educational systems, that causes you problems because someone says, "Hey, I have a bachelor of education," right? And another guy puts his hand up and says, "I have a bachelor of education." But if you have an Australian BEd and you had an American BEd, right? They are not equal. So I can teach anywhere in the world. But someone who's got a US BEd can only teach basically in the US. So there's no standard across them, right? And within the same country, you've got the same problems. So New South Wales is a very strong syllabus. So you could basically go to any university in the country if you have a New South Wales HSC, right? But it's not the same if you've got a VCE or a baccalaureate, international, whatever it's called. Yeah, that's right, because it's not accepted everywhere, you see. Even though it's international, yeah, the IB is a bit strange. And a lot of people, one of the arguments was don't do a national one, just adopt the international, the IB, right, if you know about it. But that argument lost.
Why don't they adopt the New South Wales curriculum for the whole?
Because the other states don't
Because
like
they're
that.
not good enough.
The other states, every state argues that their syllabus is the best. Which is why it's their syllabus. Because it's not like, yes, I am voluntarily going to take a crappier syllabus than the one that these other states
Because
have.
the national
So, yeah.
curriculum is dumbing down Islam.
Well, see, again,
Yes.
that's up to debate, you see.
Compared to other states that might be.
Well, see, every state says the Australian curriculum is dumbing down our curriculum. Every state says that. It's a bit like, you know how they say 75% of males think they're above average in fitness? 75%. Right? So it's like that. It's that kind of argument.
That's really funny.